Hey friend, Sean from Draft Therapy here, and it's another week. So you know what that means. Another week in Michigan beer news. Let's get into it. This is a new segment this week. I mean, they're all pretty much new segments. This is a whole new video thing. But this is a new segment. We're going to take a look at all the new beer labels that were submitted for approval to the TTB, which is the Alcohol, Tobacco Tax, and Trade Bureau. Here's my disclaimer. Don't take these labels as gospel. I'm more showing these to give you an idea of what breweries have in the pipeline, more so than what you're going to see on your shelves at your local bottle shop next week. We can think of this more as maybe like a crystal ball. We can kind of predict the future a little bit by looking at what's being submitted. So keep in mind, names might change, labels might change here and there, especially if they get rejected. But for the most part, we should probably see similar stuff on shelves at some point. Now, they obviously won't be available everywhere depending on distribution. Some of this stuff might be brewery-only releases, stuff kind of like that. Keep that in mind. So let's get started with the newest brewery, and this one will probably be a brewery-only release if I'm thinking correctly. So this one is River St. Joe out of Buchanan, Michigan. They describe themselves as a farmstead brewery destination. They grow their own ingredients. They're all locally sourced to them, or some of them are actually right down the road from their location. They opened back in 2020. They've submitted 4 new labels. They have a chocolate rye, which is like a coffee porter, a rye saison, a golden ale, and a farmhouse pale ale. I love farmhouse beers. I love the sourness of them. So hopefully that pale ale lives up to that expectation. Someday I'd like to try it. We'll see. Next up is Austin Brothers. They've been cranking out new beers for a while, new entries in their Merc series. This is no exception. 2 of these 4 beers are in that Merc series. They've got labels for Creature from the Merc Lagoon, which is really cool. I think this is probably the coolest label this week. And Merc Twain, as well as a coffee blonde and a Polish Pilsner they're calling Prawdziwa. It's Prawdziwa Pilsner. Speaking of coffee blondes, which I did just a few seconds ago, it looks like Oddside Ales has a new version of their original Michigan coffee blonde, the one that started it all off for me, the coffee blonde. In this case, it's Double Bean Flicker, and a new edition of Bourbon Maple Wishes and Pecan Dreams. I reviewed that a couple years ago, so if you're interested in that past review, I'll link it up in the corner. I'll put it in the description. And to round out individual labels, Dark Horse has a new design for their Double Crooked Tree Double IPA. It follows their most recent design motif. It looks very similar to their other labels, the new redesigns, as well as a Lansing Brewing Company release straightforwardly named Kolsch, as well as Kuhnen's Kripa, which is a cold rice IPA, and Jolly Pumpkins I.O. Wild Saison. Now on to a little industry-wide news. During my Razor scooter travels along the Information Superhighway, I've been seeing a few articles about the next hurdle for craft brewing for the craft beer industry. We've been hearing about supply chain issues with aluminum cans for the last year or so and the production and availability of those. And now the new threat to the craft beer industry is apparently a carbon dioxide shortage. Now this could cause beer prices, just like everything else these days, to rise pretty sharply. We can blame the shortage of CO2 on contamination at Jackson Dome in Mississippi. Jackson Dome is an extinct volcano. It's a major producer of food-grade carbon dioxide, so that shortness of supply could probably cause prices to raise. Now, some breweries do capture natural carbon dioxide. It's produced during the brewing process, but I'm not really sure how many Michigan breweries actually do this. It sounds like it's a pretty expensive process, especially if you're going to do it in-house. And last but not least, in the Michigan craft beer news, on the bright side of things, it looks like 2021 saw a bit of a resurgence in craft beer. Sales were up. Old Nation Brewing Company in Williamston led the way in terms of increase. They led at 18%, followed by Saugatuck, Keweenaw, and Black Rocks up in Marquette. They saw about 12 to 16% increases. This is obviously music to my ears because, let's face it, if nobody's buying beer, nobody's watching the videos that I'm making. So, let's hope that continues, but not everything was sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Oddside Ales, they kind of reversed their trajectory. They were up 16% in 2020, and they decreased 2% in 2021. Now, the big threats for breweries this year will be those supply chain issues, mentioned the aluminum cans, the CO2, and staffing shortages. But another silver lining, while I was looking for that silver lining, right now, the Brewers Association says 2022 is producing mixed results, but the industry is projected to grow 4 to 5% year over year. Now, in new release news, well, it maybe isn't a new release. It hasn't arrived here in Michigan, but does anybody have any news on when Yuengling is going to start distributing in Michigan? Yuengling and Molson Coors formed a joint venture in late 2020, which was supposed to bring Yuengling beyond its current 25-state footprint. At least in 2020, it was 25 states. But since then, it seems like it's been radio silent. And I guess the question now is, does anybody in Michigan still care? If you've heard anything lately, let us know in the comments. Shoot me an email at sean@drafttherapy.com. Moving on to new events this week in the Oktoberfest Corner, because it seems like new events these days are all Oktoberfest related. If you're living that Oktoberfest life, Brown Iron Brew House is celebrating through October 2nd. Both of their locations, Franklin and Royal Oak, will have 25 German beers as well as an Oktoberfest food menu, including stuff like chicken Jägerschnitzel, Knockwurst, Weisswurst, and Currywurst for all your worst tastes. And if you wear Lederhosen or a dirndl, you'll get 10% off your bill. Not a bad deal. The Edelweiss Club of Grand Rapids is holding their Oktoberfest celebration in Riverside Park in Grand Rapids this weekend. If you're in the area and you want to get your drink on, you can find out more information at oktoberfestgr.com. Other Oktoberfests this upcoming weekend include Dicetoberfest at Loaded Dice Brewing in Troy on Friday the 23rd, Urban Rest in Ferndale, North Center Brewing in Northville, and River's Edge Brewing in Milford are all celebrating on Saturday the 24th, and Oktoberfest at Rochester Mills in Rochester, Michigan are going all weekend long. In other brewery events this upcoming weekend, for, September 23rd to the 25th, Ascension Brewing Company is celebrating their 7th anniversary with what they're calling Crispy Fest. Now, if you couldn't guess by the name, that festival is going to be honoring all those Crispy Boys, aka lagers. You can even expect a Marzen style, some Pilsners, even barrel-aged lagers, along with draft and can releases, and of course, food specials. Now, if you haven't watched my mandatory Michigan Brewery video, we raved about Ascension. It's a great place to be, great staff, great food, great beer. With all these upcoming and past anniversaries this year, especially this whole 7th anniversary trend going on, we saw it with North Center, we see it with Ascension, we saw it with Draft Horse last week. I'm noticing there must have been something in the water with all those brewery openings in 2015. And that's all the news I have for you this week. If you've enjoyed this Michigan Beer News Blast, give me a like, subscribe if you haven't, and also let me know in the comments what kind of news you want to see from these videos going forward. This video series is still like just getting off the ground. It's in its infancy. There are a lot of pieces getting put into place, and your feedback basically is what's going to determine what I talk about in the future. If you got a hot tip, if you have an upcoming event you want me to share, hit me up at drafttherapy@gmail.com. So until next time, I'm Sean from Draft Therapy signing off. Remember, drink craft beer, support your local breweries, and until next time, of course, don't forget to treat yourself to a little draft therapy. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time. Cheers.